The following is rated not safe for work. It contains strong language, adult situations, and lots of spoilers. Discretion is advised.
In the criminal justice system, cinematic-based offenses are considered especially heinous. The dedicated attorneys who investigate these villainous films are members of an elite squad known as the Reels of Justice. These are their stories.
Order, please, order. The Reels of Justice is now in session. Judge Dylan J. Schlender presiding. We all rise for the Honorable Judge Schlender.
Be seated. Welcome to the Reels of Justice. Today we are hearing the case of The People versus Radioland Murders, a 1994 mystery comedy about a series of murders on the inaugural night. I'm just going to say on the first night.
Why?
I can't say inaugural.
Oh, how embarrassing for you.
It
Keep going.
A 1994 mystery comedy about a series of murders on the first night of an old-timey radio station that puts the network's existence in jeopardy. For those of you unfamiliar with our court proceedings, we are here to determine if this film is guilty of being a bad movie. As always in this courtroom, films are to be considered excellent until proven awful, and the burden of proof lies upon the prosecution to prove beyond a shadow of a reasonable doubt that this film is guilty. Mr. Big Ben Haslar, you are appearing on behalf of the prosecution. You may present your opening statement.
Your Honor, ladies and gents of the court, distinguished colleague on the defense team, the Radioland Murders...
A jury member shall be in the ground unless the film is guilty found.
Oh, no! Undeniable evidence of the film's guilt. Whoa, weird. My mic just cut out. Anyway, as I was saying, the film has a punishing pace that...
Do not think I'm playing games. Acquittal kills the man with fake nicknames.
Yikes. I don't know who's cutting in the mics in this courtroom, but he sounds super serious. I wouldn't mess with him if I were you. So you might just want to, vote the film guilty.
If killing jury members you think I can't, the man you'll think his name is Grant.
Okay, you know what? I'm calling it. I don't want any jury members dead on my conscience. Your Honor, Grant, what do you say we just, go ahead and convict this film here and now? Sounds good to me. I'm good. Are you good? Good?
No. Order in the court. We do not respond idly to threats around here, Mr. Haslar. You will proceed with the case.
All right.
But that said, thank you. Appearing on behalf of the defense is Grant Baciocco. Please present your opening statement.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I am here to talk about a film called Radioland Murders. A film that, when it was released in 1994, amid a landscape of bleak and dreary times, was a bright beacon of comedy. With an incredible cast, an amazing soundtrack, and a story by George Lucas, this film is fantastic and lives up to its screwball comedy ambitions and carries them through amazingly well. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Prosecution, you may proceed with your first exhibit.
Okay, so from the very beginning, this film moves at a breakneck pace. The people talk and they talk fast. They just keep talking and talking and talking, almost as if they stop talking to take a breath, the world will explode or something. We meet three characters in under a minute and aren't given much of a start as to why I should care about them. Oh, Paige, he seems nice. Don't know what his aspirations are. Maybe we can learn. Whoop, I guess no, we're on to couples talking about a divorce or something, about his suit and his sex joke about cowgirl position. And thankfully, Tish is executed because otherwise the joke went by so fast I might have missed it. The radio station manager rejects the script for what they're going to do, which I guess could be funny. But wait, we're moving on again. This is Owl at the 3 or 4 minute mark. I don't know what it is I'm supposed to be focusing on. I get what they're trying to do. They're imitating the quick, witty banterings of the old screwball comedies. The problem is Brian Ben is no Groucho Marx. Mary Stuart Masterson is no Katharine Hepburn. Try as they might, they just can't capture that fast, witty back and forth the same way that the actors in the days of yore could, where A, I know what's going on, and B, I care about their problems.
That's an interesting first point. Grant, do you have anything to say to that? Are they able to capture that essence of the old days, or is it moving too fast?
I think they are, and that's the number one criticism I see a lot from when people critique this film, is that it moves too fast. It moves too well. You got to hang on. That's up to you. That's up to the viewer. If you can't hang on and follow along, that's not the movie's problem. That's your problem.
They should put like a disclaimer at the beginning or something, like warning,
Yes.
This will move fast.
All right, so Grant, you said you have to hold on, but is there anything to grab on to Mr. Haslar's point?
There is an amazing cast. I don't know how now. Okay, I do want to from the outset say that I understand that Jeffrey Tambor is in this cast, and he is a little problematic these days. I get that. I understand that, and if you want to convict the film on that basis alone, then there's nothing I could do, because I
defended Kevin Spacey in Superman Returns, so you're clear.
Yeah.
All right. But there is just this amazing cast. Here's the thing is, there used to be these films back in the day, the glory days of Hollywood, that had so many stars in them. And I'm talking about How the West Was Won. If you are familiar with that film, you know that there's just this amazing cast. Debbie Reynolds, Jimmy Stewart, John Wayne. It goes on and on, all the people who are in this cast. And I think this is 1990s version of that, because there are a lot of stars in this film. And I think everyone gets a chance to shine and to do their thing. And I think they all deliver, in a 1990s sensibility, they deliver on that 30s screwball comedy type of film.
All right, thank you. Big Ben, you could proceed to your next point.
All right, I'm going to focus in on the jokes. Maybe the defense team is different, but I hardly ever found myself laughing. I would realize something was supposed to be funny, like maybe a second after it happened. But by then the film was already on to the next thing. And with some of these set gags, I'm not always sure what kicked it off. Like a woman gets hit in the head with a microphone stand, for example, and that's supposed to trigger the joke. Oh yeah, that's what the sound effect of a head being smashed is supposed to sound like. But by the time I realize that the whole scene, it isn't a fully formed idea in my head, I missed what kicked that microphone stand and made it twirl around. For the guy who wanted to find the sound effect. So in that instant, I get what the joke is, but it feels so poorly timed, and we're already on to the next piece, with this blink and you'll miss it stuff going on. The movie certainly knows what a joke is supposed to look like. They're certainly joke-shaped, but they're executed, the way they're executed, it never entirely lands. The script for this film kind of reminds me of the old scripts that I would read when I was doing high school drama. And let's face it, the writing for those scripts are, a bit subpar. For example, an actress has a star on her dressing room door, and the character remarks, "You're Jewish? It's not even a Jewish star." Is that the joke? All right. If you ask me, they should put warnings on those cigarette packages. Get it? Because they will. We're slamming the book closed on this case. I slammed my fingers in a car door once. The wit. So that's one aspect of it. An argument could be made that any joke in the hands of the right person, they could deliver it and make it work, which I agree. But these leads aren't those right people. They're just encouraged to speak as fast as they can, like the comedies and the cinema days of yore. So they're doing an imitation of something that already exists with a script that just isn't quite there. So the results for me are painful. I guess the strategy is to have so many damned quote-unquote jokes rapid fired at me that I'm bound to have at least a few of them land. But how many of them are actually memorable? How many of these are just there to waste my time?
I was just going to say that it's sad to me, and I feel horribly that the prosecution has no sense of humor whatsoever.
I know, it has plagued me my whole life. I will agree.
It's really sad that you watch a film like this and you can't laugh once. There are so many jokes in this that I can quote, that I do quote. And on top of that, this film is great with the physical comedy as well. If you look at Billy Budget, who's the page boy, who is a thread throughout the whole film, played by Scott Michael Campbell. He flies through the air so many times after getting kicked out of rooms, it becomes a joke in itself. And it's, to me, the physical comedy is really, really done well. People going in and out of doors. Maybe that's not the prosecution's type of humor. Maybe
No, Billy was okay. He tried hard. You might argue he tried a little too hard, but yes.
Ben, could you comment on the physical humor? You did just kind of bring up some of the rapid fire jokes, but there was a lot of physicality in this movie.
There was a lot of physicality, but I would refer back to the thing about the microphone stand. A lot of these jokes, like with people running into doors as they open, like they're funny, but they're so fast, it doesn't feel like it's timed well.
Very well. Would you like to move on to your next point, please?
Sure. So fun fact, Christopher Lloyd was only on set for a single day, and as a result, his character interacts with literally nobody. He's the Foley guy in the booth, so his whole role is nothing but mugging, and some more mugging. Some craziness happens on stage. Christopher Lloyd makes a sound effect by smashing a melon or something, and he mugs for the camera. He disappears for a bit, another crazy thing, and Chris Lloyd mugs for another scene. He has no real character here. He's Chris Lloyd, and I'm supposed to love him just because he's in Back to the Future or something. And a lot of the problem also extends to Michael McKean, who's the conductor. He's just there with the band, sometimes with a sombrero, mugging for the camera. No real character. He's just the mugging guy. All of this just continues on endless repeat for the near 2-hour runtime, and it gets super exhausting, super quick. People will talk fast. Someone does slapstickily knock something over, running, chaos on stage. Christopher Lloyd mugs. Michael McKean mugs. Repeat.
Grant, do you have anything to say about the mugging?
Well, first of all, yes, it was true. Christopher Lloyd was only on set for one day, but he's a very busy man. You can't expect him to commit several weeks to a long feature like this. He does have a scene with Brian Benben. It is very short, but he does have a scene. So to say that nobody interacts with him is not entirely fair. He also has a scene with, and I'm blanking on the actress's name, but the woman who plays Morgana. She is a comedian. I will find her name here in a second and but she's a stand-up comic who plays sort of the custodian of the radio station. She has a scene in there with him as well. So to say he's there with absolutely no one is a little disingenuous. Secondly,
Leanne Lord, I believe.
Leanne Lord, yeah. Oh no, you know what? I don't know if that's her.
Ryan, help us out here. You know these things.
Not on the Wikipedia page.
I'm looking at it right now. I can't find it.
I'm looking at the IMDb, but
if Ryan doesn't know, no one does. It's okay, Grant. It's okay, Grant.
Records.
we believe you, Grant. Please continue.
Oh, it is Leanne Lord. I'm sorry. I was getting her confused with the other.
Leanne Rhymes, of course.
Like I said, Leanne Lord. That's what I said earlier.
Yes, I know. You are correct. Leanne Lord, who's fantastic in this film as well. The other thing I want to say is if you take a movie like The Avengers or Avengers Infinity War or Avengers Endgame, everybody has to share the screen. And not everybody gets a huge story. I would say that Falcon, our new Captain America in Avengers Endgame, doesn't get much time. Yes, he's disintegrated for most of the film and just comes back at the end. But even when he comes back, he doesn't do a lot except fly around and help fight. So that is what this is like Avengers Endgame from the 90s. That's all I'm saying.
He still had more lines than Christopher Lloyd had.
So Christopher Lloyd is the Falcon of the Radioland Murder universe?
Oh, I'm imagining the fan art right now.
I like it. All right, Big Ben, what do you got next?
Black Panther was the Michael McKean.
he died.
All right,
He was Shuri.
Oh, okay.
Order in the court, please. Big Ben, please continue.
All right, I'm going to move on to my largest point, which is the story. So I guess the cops don't know what is referred to in police jargon as sheltering in place, which is pretty much what you do when people start dropping dead left and right in your radio station. You don't allow them to continue their production where everything is going wrong. You shut that mother down. But if we did that, we couldn't get more Chris Lloyd mugging comedic gold. So we in the prosecution constantly found ourselves wondering just what it was we were supposed to care about. Them pulling off this radio show? Well, that goes wrong in the first few minutes, so that's not it. The characters pending divorce? Well, the leads are here or there pretty forgettable in the film. Chris Lloyd and Mikey McKean don't even have characters, so I guess the murder is what I'm supposed to care about. But the murder is so slapdashedly placed throughout the film at random junctures. Like this ass of a trumpet player is just holding one big long note. His face getting all sweaty, like with the song, like the conductor's holding that note when he clearly signaled him to stop. He loses his breath and collapses. I don't get this joke. If the conductor were intentionally holding that note, it would make sense, but he's not. He was one of the first victims, and he had rat poison or something like that. And is that a known side effect of rat poison, that you hold long trumpet notes? I don't understand what's happening here. And there's no real hints as to who the killer is, or even what they want until the last 15 minutes or so in the film, when they raided an old file room, and it just happens to have the old newspapers that say, oh, hey, here's a pocket knife. Okay, cool. That ties it all together. So there's no way we as an audience could possibly piece together all of these victims were scared of the killer's idea of television. But yeah, it turns out that it's a sound engineer, and the reason he kills them all on opening night is also fairly random. How he manages to execute these killings from the sound booth is not really explained. I guess somehow, like how he gets that maniacal voice into the PA system, that makes sense, I guess. But where are the switches that he's like throwing to electrocute that guy, or the room that fills with gas? And I can't even figure out how he planned the guy killing himself with cogs or stopping an elevator. The sound engineer forces the protagonist to then climb up a radio tower for no reason whatsoever. I still don't completely understand, except it's just more cinematic this way. If you ask him why, he's just like, I've seen the future. It's television. The protagonists even ask what that reason is, and he just goes, ah! I guess George Lucas didn't bother come up with any sort of real motivations. And then a biplane shows up out of literally nowhere just to shoot him down. And despite him getting pummeled in the lungs with bullets, he still can scream out stuff about radio while plummeting down the tower. Dumb. And on that, the prosecution rests.
Thank you very much, Mr. Haslar. Mr. Baciocco, present your first exhibit, please.
My first exhibit is the cast. Now, I do want to say that George Lucas wanted to make this movie back in the 70s, and attached to play the leads instead of Brian Benben and Mary Stuart Masterson were none other than Steve Martin and Cindy Williams, who were going to originally play the leads, if the information on the internet is to be believed.
I want to believe
everything on the internet.
We always believe whatever we read on the internet.
Perfect. The movie was stuck in development forever, and was decided to be made in the 90s. So they assembled a fantastic cast of 90s stars and 80s stars to be in this. I mean, I can read the cast list, but you can see it yourself. You have Brian Benben and Mary Stuart Masterson in the leads. You've got Ned Beatty as the owner of the radio station. You've got the incredible Stephen Tobolowsky as Max Applewhite, the sound engineer. The aforementioned Michael McKean, who is doing a spot-on Spike Jones from Spike Jones and his City Slickers impression during the film. Corbin Burnson as Dexter Morris. Now, this is, I will say, Bobcat Goldthwait is one of the writers, and he is doing his Bobcat shtick. I will concede that it would have been nice to maybe have somebody a little less loud in that role. We had Anita Morris, who played Claudette Katzenbach, the Va 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 Voom girl. This was her last screen appearance. She passed away before the movie was released. So sad about that. But I think she is fantastic in this film. We'll skip over Jeffrey Tambor. Larry Miller, who I think is always hilarious in things as a comedian and as not. The much maligned Christopher Lloyd. And then, oh, by the way, Harvey Korman is one of the writers, playing drunk the entire time and delivering fantastic things. And that's the main cast. And then you have legendary stars. George Burns is in this film. It is his final screen feature appearance as George Burns. Rosemary Clooney comes by for a song. And ladies and gentlemen, Billy Barty. I don't know how you can pan any film that has Billy Barty in it. And Billy Barty sings, which is another throwback to Spike Jonze, because he used to travel a lot with Spike Jonze, and he used to sing with Spike Jonze and his band. You have Robert Klein as one of the writers. It is the 90s, so you have Joey Lawrence. Okay, there's another strike against the film. But listen, it is an all-star cast who is doing great. It's an ensemble comedy, and I think that with this star power, it's just fun to see where they're going to pop up next, what they're going to be doing. And I will talk about the story of the film in another point, but that is my first point, is the cast.
All right, that's a fair point. Mr. Haslar, any quick comments on the cast? It's quite the expansive list.
No, I agree the cast should be good. I was expecting them to be good. And for the most, some of them were. I did like the page. But yeah, as far as what they're doing, I find few of it to be memorable. But maybe that's just me. The jury will have to decide.
Fair enough. All right, Grant, you can move on to your next point, please.
My next point is the soundtrack by Joe McNeely. One of the great things about this movie that I love is that it sort of takes place over one night. As the prosecution said, that if a radio station was broadcasting and people were dying left and right, they would shut it down. This radio station in this film, a comedy film that doesn't have to follow dramatic things, continues to broadcast. And I love the way that the soundtrack underscores the things that are happening backstage. This film, I was going to say this for the story part, but this film has a very Noises Off vibe. Noises Off is, of course, the play, and then they made it into a film where there's a play happening on stage in front of an audience, and then there's all this craziness going on backstage. And one of the conceits of this film is that there are speakers throughout the entire building that are playing what's being broadcast on the radio. And it is very funny to me that when they're creeping into a dark place, there just happens to be a murder mystery going on stage, and the music accompanies that. And I think the soundtrack was just really well done to match what was going on in the film, but still keep it as if it was part of the radio show that was going out. I have this soundtrack. I listen to this soundtrack often. I think people should pick up this soundtrack. The soundtrack is amazing. That's my second point.
Available on cassette.
I would say that The Phantom Menace has a brilliant soundtrack, but that doesn't make what's happening on the script any more plausible or any more easy to follow. I mean, it's not that Phantom Menace is hard to follow, but any more, that you're in for the journey with them. Because this is pod racing. Yeah, with brilliant score by John Williams beneath it, but still, this is pod racing is dumb.
We'll let the jury weigh the facts. Thank you. And Mr. Baciocco, if you want to move on to your story point.
Yes, my story point is this film is a madcap comedy. You cannot expect laws of physics, reality things to be happening in it. It is a screwball comedy. There are my colleague, the prosecution, says that there were jokes that don't land. There are hilarious jokes through this, and as I stated earlier, a lot of them very physical. One is that when Brian Benben and Mary Stuart Masterson creep to an empty floor in the building, and one of the murder victims is hung from the ceiling, Brian Benben just happens to be standing beneath his feet, and the guy's feet are on his shoulders. Mary Stuart Masterson sees the body, points to it. He thinks it's behind him. He turns, and the body turns with him. That is gallows humor. That is black comedy, and it is really, really funny in that moment. There's great lines that happen. One of my favorites is, I kind of slagged him a little bit during the cast thing, but Bobcat Goldthwait, as one of the writers, when they say, when the actors on stage don't have a script and they can hear it, he suddenly goes, "The actors are improvising?" Ah! And I just think that's hilarious because that's what a writer would say. There's great physical bits, like when Roger's trying to explain to the cops what he thinks is happening. That's Brian Benben's character. There's this impossibly large desk. He keeps running around to get different pictures to show the cop. The whole laughing gas segment, I think, is hilarious because, again, it's more gallows humor and black comedy because somebody just died, but they died with laughing gas, and everyone there to see it is hilarious. The
prosecution will admit that scene was pretty good.
Yeah, okay.
Order.
I understand comedy is subjective. I get it. I totally understand that comedy is subjective, but I think the comedy in this is great. I think the speed just adds to it. I think the speed of the film and the rapid fire encourages you to rewatch it because you learn more things, or you see new things more times you watch it. Now, I will say, it's not something I'm watching every night before I go to bed or something like that. But it is a film. There's a very popular meme going around on Twitter. What are some 5 films you've seen more than 10 times? I have seen this one. I enjoy it. And I think it is a very funny film. And I think you can suspend disbelief when it comes to a comedy like this. The defense rests.
Okay. Thank you. And both sides have rested their cases. The attorneys will now present their closing arguments. Mr. Haslar, you may begin.
Fast dialogue, slapstick, Christopher Lloyd mugging while doing Foley, slapstick, Mikey McKean chewing gum while conducting. Fast dialogue, slapstick, Christopher Lloyd mugging while doing Foley, slapstick, Mikey McKean wearing a sombrero while conducting. Fast dialogue, slapstick, Christopher Lloyd mugging while doing Foley, slapstick, Mikey McKean wearing plaid while conducting. You get the point. This film is endlessly repetitive and it is at a punishing pace. If that's the kind of film you enjoy, then I think you should consider donating your brain to science so they can find out why your brain is so different from, other brains they dissect.
Jeez. Wow, that took a turn.
Yeah, not me.
All right. Mr. Baciocco, please present your closing statement.
In his 1-star review of Radioland Murders, famed movie critic Roger Ebert said of the film, "It's all movement." Yes, Roger, it is all movement. It is funny, it is fast, and you need to grab on and hold on or else you're not going to get it. This film is a wonderful example of a modern day screwball comedy, and I think there should be more films like it.
All right. Thank you both.
And I'm not going to insult my... I'm not going to insult the prosecutor.
Yeah, well, don't worry.
Well, I appreciate that.
We'll take care of that in the jury, I'm sure. Thank you both, members of the jury, Mr. Dylan Schlender, Mr. Maynard Bangs, and Mr. Video Kill, the Ryan Luis Rodriguez star. You have all heard the facts concerning this case. It is now up to you to determine whether this film is guilty of being a bad movie. The bailiff will escort you to the deliberation chamber to render your verdict.
All right, this way. I found this talk boy hooked up to the sound system. Does anybody knows who it might belongs to? Whoa, that's mine. Whoa, never mind that now. Never mind.
He's got a talk boy?
Oh, man. It was the coolest
We
toy
were
of
cheap on the
94.
prosecution team.
Rob, you've been unusually quiet this episode. Why don't you start off?
Well, I mean, first off, we're here very late in the recording, and I think that was part of the defense's strategy was to keep the prosecutor up very late at night to really throw him off of the trail. This movie really did walk a line for me. Like, there's definitely parts of it I enjoyed and things I didn't. The cast on paper is phenomenal. And I think the whole first 10 minutes you're incredibly excited as everyone is introduced, because you're like, oh, he's great, like how can I find a movie with Christopher Lloyd guilty, how can I find something with Peter McNichol guilty, Michael McKean, like this cast is wonderful. But then as the movie unfolds, a lot of them are really just underused. They don't get to do enough, and you're largely left following with Brian Ben around. As for Ben, he is, I learned to appreciate through the film, he's a very good physical comedian. I thought the slapstick throughout this movie was very strong, but he doesn't have the comedic timing perfectly down for a lot of his one-liners. So a lot of them didn't hit for me, which I think the prosecutor brought up. Whereas, I think Michael Lerner, who was, I think, the lieutenant, his delivery was sharp, and a lot of his jokes did hit.
It was the big cop. With the
yeah.
white hair.
Yes,
he was hilarious. Everything he did was great.
Yeah, the Roger Ebert mayor from Godzilla.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely picked up the screwball comedy-ness. But that stuff's hard, right? I mean, a lot of that is you polished, vaudeville polished a lot of those performers. A lot of them were in it for decades, and I don't know what Brian Ben's background is, but I'm not sure he stepped all that well into the timing of the lines.
Are you kidding? He's the star of Dream On. Of course he was built to do this.
I looked up what else he's in, because he has one of those faces that's familiar, and I'm not familiar.
He was on the Brian Ben show. I've never watched it, but I know that it exists.
There was a Brian Ben show?
Apparently.
Oh my God. Did that last longer than the Chevy Chase show?
I think 3 episodes more.
It was a spin-off of the Chevy Chase show.
Yeah, that was the problem. That was the real problem.
Yeah. What did you guys think of the cast?
Dylan?
Well, I gotta say, I hate agreeing with Maynard, but he basically summed it up for me. The first few minutes of the movie, very exciting. Maynard and I watch it together, and as everyone's coming on, we're like, oh, it's this guy. I didn't realize Jeffrey Tambor was problematic now, so I was like, I love Jeffrey Tambor.
Don't look up his Wikipedia.
Oh, who has the time? So anyway, I agree with that. And then as the movie kept progressing, it kind of fell into this repetitive behavior that Ben pointed out. Some of the jokes I find were falling flat, but they were coming so rapid fire. Some of them were pretty funny, like see people get hit by doors and the running around and all of that. And then one of the things too that Ben really nailed for me was you didn't really have the opportunity to figure out who the murderer was, you didn't really get a chance to solve the mystery. And if they're not giving you a chance to solve the mystery, then are you supposed to care about the radio production, is what Ben asked. It's well, that was already getting screwed up before anyone was even murdered. Mm-hmm. So it's just about how the female protagonist can pull it out of this nosedive, but we don't really get to see a lot of them working, and they keep coming up with these the page scripts, just to run out to the actors, they're seemingly out of nowhere. They'll just have a new script for whatever the new scene is, and it felt a little discombobulated, I must say.
Well, that's a good point.
That's the problem with farce. That's a very familiar problem with farce.
That's a good point. Yeah. Because I thought you brought up a good point there, Dylan, where it's the show is falling apart before the murders.
Yeah.
Seemingly because of the way Ned Beatty runs the station. But the audience seems to love the show anyway.
Oh yeah, because to them it's all funny. It's when when you're watching Saturday Night Live and someone's breaking, you catch David Spade cracking up. Audiences love that kind of stuff. even back in the 30s, apparently.
They did love David Spade in the 30s. I agree.
Yeah.
He belonged somewhere.
Yeah. So Ryan, what are you thinking, man? What are your thoughts?
So to piggyback on what Grant mentioned about 5 movies you've seen more than 10 times, it's not 10 times, but I've seen this movie 5 times.
Oh,
okay.
This was the first movie with boobies that I was allowed to watch because it was rated PG.
We rewound for those.
Around it.
We rewound for those boobies.
He didn't believe me. He had to check his phone real quick.
Yeah,
like, oh, they were just boobs. He's like, oh, rewind it.
Yeah, I was like, I just wanted to be sure.
No, I kind of love this movie. I can't really defend it, but I don't know. I mean, all the points that the defense was making, I think they were made exclusively to me because I was every single time going, yeah, that's right. You tell him. Yeah, it is good. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I'm ready to go all the way to good, but ultimately our question is to decide whether it's bad.
Yes, that is.
And one thing I'll say about this film, despite some of the things that may not work, it does have an infinite amount of charm.
Very much so.
Very, very charming. Even though Christopher Lloyd has a small part, he knocks it out of the park. I loved the idea of making all the sound effects and him have to do them all. Like that worked, and it's slapsticky. And a lot of the humor I thought that worked in this movie was slapsticky. I think that is its big strength.
I think the funniest bit for me, I think, was when they got the scripts mixed up, and it was the two women reading the murder plot. But it was supposed to be like more soap opera-ish or whatever.
Yeah. Like, I was going to say
that was hilarious.
That's one of the times where the written humor really works, and those two performers killed it. Where they get the scripts mixed up, so one's performing the soap opera and the other's performing, I think it's an action or a war something. So she's calling her like 8-year-old daughter an infidel, and like, that was great. But I wish we had built up to it a little bit more because it comes in like the first half hour, and I would have. After that, whatever happened with the scripts wasn't as effective.
Yeah, that's the problem. Was there was really no build up. Like it should have kept getting zanier and zanier and zanier, but they kind of peaked and plateaued.
Yeah. But anyway, I'll be the first one to go on record. It's not a side splitter. I wasn't laughing the whole time, but I was smiling a good amount of the time. I do think it's infinitely charming. And I'm trying to think of, in terms of a bad movie, I think of a bad movie as a movie I definitely don't ever want to watch again. And I would watch this one again. I'm surprised it was as poorly received when it came out as it was, and bombed as hard as it did. But I enjoyed it, so I'm going to go not guilty.
Dylan, what you thinking?
So I would not want to watch this movie again, to be honest with you. I did not do a lot to kind of maintain my interest. I've been reading a lot of murder mysteries recently, so I was actually really wanted to watch it and try to figure out who the murderer was, and they don't really give you a lot to go off of, and like you could kind of just make guesses and it doesn't really matter. So I think the movie is just not successful in too many key areas, and I think Ben drove those points home. I do appreciate what Grant came in to say and his passion for the movie, but I'm going guilty on this one.
Innocent.
Well, it's not guilty, but
all right.
Say, would you like to elaborate further, Ryan?
I did say that I kind of love this movie.
I know you said, but I like, some concrete things. Is it, something about a specific performance or?
No, because I get why people would hate it, but there's something about 90s nostalgia for like the golden age of stuff. Like, that's when we made a bunch of TV shows or a bunch of movies based on old TV shows for some reason. And for some reason, somebody thought, oh yeah, kids will love this. They're always talking about the golden age of radio. Like George Lucas is on the cutting edge of everything. This is one of the first films entirely edited on an Avid, so he's really pushing the stuff further. But he's like, you know what kids love? Bunch of shit falling out of a closet with sound effects. Yep, that's it. Brilliant. I love it.
Well, actually, they do. My kids, their favorite commercial is that Tupperware commercial where the lady opens the cabinet.
Yeah.
There's a beat, and then all the Tupperware comes flying out at her.
Where were your kids in 1994, Dylan?
I'll look into it. But
Just
in
a
the meantime,
twinkle in his eye. All right, let's get out there and tell that very handsome judge.
Oh, you're too good.
I feel so dirty.
Ugh,
You
ugh,
should.
ugh.
Mr. Foreman, have you reached a verdict?
We have, Your Honor. In the case of the People versus Radioland Murders, unlike the viewing public, we find the defendant not guilty of being a bad movie.
All right, thank you. The verdict is so rendered, and I hereby order that the Radioland Murders will receive a special George Lucas recut with more tauntauns. Case dismissed.
I think you mean Wampas, but that's okay.
Wampas, tauntauns, they're all Star
the
Wars
same.
things.
They're all the same.
We can get more.
Heresy.
That's the point.
Heresy.
This is Toiley T paper reporting for the Gabagoo Times. Oh, wait, hold on. It doesn't say that. I just added that in. Okay, here we go. Take it 2.
Gabagoo Gazette.
Gabagoo Gazette. Okay, that's right. All right. How much am I getting paid for this? Okay, here we go. This is Toiley T paper for the Gabagoo Gazette reporting live from outside the Reels of Justice. Big Ben Haslar, would you care to share your thoughts on the jury's verdict?
Hello, Toiley. Big fan. I would like to just issue a apology to Grant's brain. I do not think that they should dissect you. There is nothing wrong with your brain. I hope you accept my sincerest apology, sir, and thank you.
All right. That seemed pretty disingenuous. Okay, here we go. And here comes Grant Baciocco. Excuse me, Grant. Can we get a word about how you feel about today's verdict?
Thank you, Toiley. You're looking good today.
Thank you. You are too.
Thank you. Listen, I think the justice system worked today. You saw the justice system in action, and I think it worked perfectly as it should. And, I didn't even have to bring out the fact that George Lucas has said in interviews that Roger and Penny from this movie are the parents of Richard Dreyfuss's character in American Graffiti. So this is actually a prequel to American Graffiti. I didn't even have to bring that up because I knew the case was so solid.
Oh, brother. Okay, thanks. Well, that's it for me, Toiley T paper. That's all from the courthouse. Let's go back to the studio for some post-trial analysis. That should be fun.
Is that our first special guest and reporter?
I think that's our first special guest.
That's awesome.
No, we had
That's a
Wax
guest.
Waster once.
We did have Wax
Waster.
Waster.
Wax Waster, yeah. So, like, the Gabagoo Gazette has got a great staff, is what I'm.
It has an enormous staff.
It's huge. They're everywhere.
Either that or people just keep quitting, like
The turnover is
But Grant, that was a great case. This was an interesting movie. I'd never not only never seen it before, I'd never heard of it before.
Same here.
I don't know what it was. I was in college when it came out at Cal State Long Beach in Southern California. And I think I just saw commercials and I was just like, this movie is for me. I have always been into sort of recorded comedy and old time radio, Stan Freberg, that kind of thing. And so seeing the previews, I was like, this movie is for me. I'm going to love this film. And I remember I went and saw it at a movie theater, at AMC Movie Theater in Long Beach. And I just liked it. And I think it was because, I was in college. I was a theater major. So I was performing and doing, performing on stage and stuff. And just sitting there watching it, I was just kind of like, this would have been fun to be involved in. This is the kind of thing I want to do. It's fast. It's funny. It's right in my wheelhouse. And as a little side note, I produced, starting in 2004, I produced a podcast called The Radio Adventures of Dr. Floyd. And one of our first special guests before things came out about him was Jeffrey Tambor. And he was our first big celebrity guest who we got on the show. And when I was going to meet him, I was like, well, I got to bring up Radioland Murders because the Radio Adventures of Dr. Floyd was inspired by Radioland Murders. It was an old time radio show that we were doing in the modern day. And if you listen to the soundtrack of Radioland Murders, like the kind of orchestral parts, and you listen to the score, and you listen to an episode of Radio Adventures of Dr. Floyd, you're going to be like, these things are awfully familiar, because when we were first doing the show, nobody was listening, and I just lifted things directly from the soundtrack of
Nice.
of Radioland Murders, and then because it was old time radio and it was great, and then when the show started getting some traction and people were listening, I was like, okay, we can't do this because we're going to get in trouble if we do this. So I had a friend make sort of sound-alike pieces. So that's why the soundtrack is so great to me. But anyway, I said to Jeffrey Tambor in that interview, I said, Radioland Murders was, like a big inspiration on this show. And he just looked at me and said, Radioland Murders? Nobody liked that film. And I even read a story today from Corbin Burnson where he said it was the first movie that he went to go see with his family, and they made him get up and walk out halfway through the film.
Oh, it's not that bad.
No.
And he's
should
good
have got him
in
on as a
it,
character
too.
witness, though.
Yeah.
Corbin Burnson's actually really good in that movie.
But anyway, it's good. Name has been cleared in the record books. It is officially not a bad movie. That's etched in stone now. So Grant, what else have you been working on? What's been keeping you busy lately?
Well, my friend Toiley T Paper, being his sort of right-hand man, we're just making videos. We do several live streams each week on YouTube and on TikTok. He's got over 2 million followers on TikTok. Things are starting to pick back up now that the things are opening up. So getting a few more puppetry gigs. I just did a great, I think it's going to be really great, but a great short film for Netflix, which I can't say much about, but it's going to be a lot of fun. And it was my first time working with creatures. So not just sort of Muppet style puppets, but more like gremlin type things.
Oh, fun.
Very cool.
That is cool.
And I think that's going to be a lot of fun. I don't even think it's been announced, so I don't even want to say the name of it yet because I don't want to get in trouble.
No,
Mummy's the word around here.
Once it's dropped, though, we'll have you back, and then we can talk all about it. But obviously for our listeners, Grant was Crow on the revival of Mystery Science Theater.
I was the lead puppeteer on Crow. Want to make sure that's
lead
Hampton
puppeteer.
I was the lead puppeteer of Crow. Yeah,
and on the tour, you were the voice on the tour.
I was the voice, yes, on the 30th anniversary tour. Yeah,
yes, with Tim Servo.
Yes,
who we've also had on the show, and he also successfully defended a film. He got Josie and the Pussycats off,
which is not that hard, really.
It wasn't that hard. No, that's great, and obviously we're big fans of Toiley around here in the house. The kids really like Toiley, and I think we've sent some videos of the kids' homemade puppetry with Toiley too. So definitely check out Toiley. Toiley is great. And also, side note, Grant has a wonderful LJN wrestling figure collection too. That I'm incredibly envious of because they're all on cards and stuff. And there's great videos of that on YouTube of all those LJN figures. So
I go through bouts of like, okay, it's time to sell all this stuff, and then I'm like, I can't.
Please
can't sell it.
Well, I think Rob will take it if off your hands. If you do.
I couldn't afford it. Well, I mean, I could, but then that would be all I could
afford. Nothing else,
and then you're never gonna move out.
Yes, exactly. But we'd have such a sweet LJN collection.
You'll be like sitting in that refrigerator box, like, oh, I love you, my precious.
LJNs are cool. They're the big rubber ones. But they're a little before my time. I was more of a Hasbro kid, so if I was gonna sell an arm for a leg for a wrestling figure collection, I would have gone Hasbro. So just there's our little wrestling moment. No one wants me to talk too much about wrestling. I know.
Damn right.
Everyone's just shut it off. Everyone's hitting that skip 30 seconds button.
You do that when we get another Star Trek episode. Dylan and I do.
I gotta keep you guys in line. Damn it!
Yeah,
no
you
more
guys
wrestling
talk about Star Trek all the time. Grant, we always ask our guests for a recommendation of a film that you think people should see. So, what is a movie that you think people should check out?
Well, probably my favorite movie of all time is Harvey with Jimmy Stewart. I think that is just a classic film, and a lot of people, especially younger folks nowadays, have not seen it. That is one definitely I've watched well over 20 times, because that is just like a big bowl of comfort food. It's just a great movie. It's a great ensemble, and Harvey with Jimmy Stewart. I know it's black and white, but you'll love it. I promise.
It was just on Turner Classic Movies. It's amazing. It's so good. Yeah.
We're always making the kids watch black and white movies. And they always kick and complain when they have to watch it, and then they totally forget it's black and white 10 minutes in. And then if you ask them at the end, they're like, "We really liked it, even though black and white is boring."
Yeah, I grew up in the age of color. Why is it like kids of today's era are so opposed to it?
I don't know, but we just watched. God damn it! What the hell did we watch? We watched
20 Million
Miles to Earth, a Ray Harryhausen. This weekend, and the kids loved it. So.
Really liked it. Well, the elephant fight was a lot cooler than I remembered it. That's neither here nor there.
I'm gonna go next for my recommendation because it's a great companion piece to that. Our movie this week took place in 1939, and it just so happened that a lot of pretty decent movies were released that year too. So, in honor of that, I'm going to recommend Frank Capra's Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. It stars James Maitland Stewart. Yep, James Maitland Stewart, Jimmy to his friends, as a newly appointed senator who combats corruption at our nation's capital. It was nominated for 11 Academy Awards, but only won one for writing, being beaten out in most categories by some movie called Gone with the Wind. But if you want to check out the movie that made Jimmy Stewart a major Hollywood star, along with putting the filibuster on the map, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington is currently streaming on HBO Max.
Gone with the Wind, stupid movie.
Yeah, and Wizard of Oz got one of them too for scoring.
I think Ryan and I would get along very well. Our movies, we like Harvey, we like Radioland Murders. We both think Gone with the Wind's like, eh. So yeah, I think Ryan and I get along just well.
You have tons to talk about, I'm sure.
How do you feel about Toy Story? That's really specifically Toy Story 2.
Toy Story 2. Let's be specific.
Yeah. The rest can go to hell, but Toy Story 2.
No, 1 and 3 can stay, but 2 is the best.
Okay.
I like that there was puppets in Toy Story 2, because that whole scene where they're watching the old show.
That's right.
It's all computer animation, but it was based on real puppets that they even brought puppeteers into. So yeah, I'm with you. Toy Story 2. That's it.
There it is.
All right. We got a new friend. Yay!
We forged the friendship. Here we go. Let's see. So, Ben, you are a prosecutor. Why don't you go next?
I'm going to go with a film that I feel is in the same spirit of Radioland Murders, as in they both hearken to the old forms of entertainment, and go with Sky Captain in the World of Tomorrow. Critics of the film will rightly point out that the film looks terrible with the fog and CGI at first. But once your eye sort of adjusts to it, you'll be treated as a very fun tribute to stories like Flash Gordon.
Yeah, no, I like Sky Captain, and it's exciting, and yeah, I like those period pieces that it's kind of steampunky, right? It's not.
Angelina Jolie has an eye patch and a jetpack. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty.
Yeah, exactly. I'll just have Ryan solo my films. I'll be like, Ryan, Sky Captain, go.
Yeah.
Oh man,
it was a pretty good one. Dylan, you were our judge. What do you got for us?
All right, I'm just going to come out of left field because I couldn't really think of anything, and I'm going to recommend As Good as It Gets, the best movie of 1997. No need to fact check me. Jack Nicholson leads an all-star cast and Skeet Ulrich in a comedy that is all about characters and human fallibility. The story of me seeing it is actually pretty hilarious because it came out in 97. I was 10 years old. My older brother convinced my Nana to take us to go see it, but we're dumb kids and we don't really get this movie at all. We're watching it. My Nana thought it was hilarious. And so we were like, man, I don't really get that movie. She goes, well, we'll go see a different movie too. And so we walked across the theater and we saw Sphere with Larry Fishburne. And like that movie, I thought it was really cool when I was a kid, but then you go back and watch it. So now here we are all these years later. I like As Good as It Gets a lot more than Sphere is my point.
That story's not as hilarious as you think it is.
Major slam on Skeet Ulrich there. Jeez.
Yeah. Now
I love Skeet Ulrich. Jericho's awesome, but let's face it, he's not an all-star.
Did he kill? Was he the killer in the end?
What? And As Good as It Gets?
Yeah. He's always the killer.
No. He wasn't the killer, but it was.
He's always the killer.
No.
That's a Scream joke.
I know it is. I got nothing.
Ryan, send us on home with a recommendation that Grant is also going to like.
Okie dokie. In honor of this week's case, my recommendation is another movie about radio and death. Robert Altman's A Prairie Home Companion from 2006. Altman likely didn't know that it was going to be the last film that he completed before he died, but it takes on a new resonance when one considers that context. It's lively, it's warm, it's bittersweet. Yes, it features Garrison Keillor, but don't hold that against it. It's not currently streaming for free anywhere, but you can rent or buy it on the service of your choice.
I mean, we have had a lot of personal attacks on performers today. Garrison Keillor.
Much deserved, except for Skeet Ulrich. That's not fair.
Bobcat Goldthwait, kind of.
That's okay. That's fine. He's a good
Oh, man, do your Bobcat impression.
I don't have one.
You realized 1 second in, no, I don't have it.
Yeah. That's a really hard voice. I can't do it. I can't do one. He's genius. You can't capture him. I don't know. Can't put him in a bottle.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Where?
As we start to wind things down here, we'd like to remind our listeners that if you leave us an iTunes review and send us a screenshot of it on either Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook with the hashtag ROJ Reviews, you will be entered into an upcoming raffle for some really cool Reels of Justice swag. Yeah. Oh, Jesus Christ.
You left us a review? Wow.
Yeah. I mean, you probably could have waited.
I've been
till
hoping
after.
for that for my entire life as a review from Jesus.
You could probably wait to get till after you got fizzy water out of your nose.
I had to show everyone that I can do anything at any time.
No one, that was not shown. I mean, you certainly didn't prove you could drink fizzy water safely.
Technically, you can't show them anything since this is an audio recording. But
whatever.
he
got you.
It's true. It's just as well. They can't see me without my beard.
This ain't the Joe Rogan show. We don't have YouTube clips on this shit.
But no, great episode this week. We want to thank our guests, Grant. Grant, thank you for joining us so much. We'd love to have you back.
Of course. Thank you so much. I'm glad we could work it out, and it was a ton of fun.
Yeah, we had a great time, and we hope everyone will join us again next time as well as the Reels of Justice keep turning.
Count it.
Ulrich.
Please follow us on Twitter at Reels of Justice, Instagram Reels of Justice, and Facebook.com/Reels of Justice.